Hi there. So this is going to be my first live video. I got a bunch of questions and me and my husband, Eric, will answer them for you. He's going to take more of the science medical questions. So first off, let me say that this is not meant to be medical advice. You still want to talk to your doctor before starting any diets or making any changes. So let's start with the first question I got. The first question was sent to me privately, and it said, what the hell are macros and how do I calculate them? So in another video, I talked about what are macros. And macros are your percentages for fats, for proteins, for carbs, and also your calories. You can easily find out how much you need by going to rule.me. They have they have a really great, easy to use calculator on there. So I'm going to pull it up right now and kind of walk you through step by step on how to do that. So once you pull up, and I will put a link to this so that you can do it at home. But one of the first things it asks is whether you're male or female. Then you put your height and weight in, your age, and your body fat percentage. Now, most people don't have body fat calipers at home. That way you can figure out what your body fat percentage is. But it's really easy. There are pictures online that'll show you what each percentage is, and you can kind of just guess where you'll be at. And then you have to pick how active you are on a day-to-day basis. Now, for me, I have 2 kids. I call that light activity to moderate activity because I'm always chasing them around. But they do give descriptions of each level of activity. So pick the one that fits you best and try not to embellish because it'll only hurt you when it gives you the wrong macros. And then lastly...
Hi, Darlene. Thanks for joining us.
You're going to also want to know what your goal is. Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to maintain? Do you want to gain muscle? Most of us probably want to lose weight. And then how many carbs do you want to consume? Most people start out at about 20 grams of carbs to get themselves into ketosis. And then how much protein do you need to have? And again, it's going to give you 3 categories: if you're sedentary, if you're active, if you lift weights, and what your protein should be based on that. For me, I put my protein at 0.8. I say I'm active, but I go on the lower scale of active. At the end, it'll calculate and give you your macros. And that's what you're going to use to base your entire diet on. That'll tell you how low your carbs need to be. Most importantly, how much fats you need, because that's going to be your main source of energy. And then also how much protein. You're not just going to be filling up on bacon and meat all day long. You need things other than meat, other than protein. Everything should be balanced out based on your macros. So that's that question. I hope I answered that. Also how to calculate it. If you download an app, there are plenty of free apps on the market. I really like MyFitnessPal. It's really easy to use. You can go in and you can set what your macros are, and then once your macros are set, you just insert what you ate for the day and it'll give you your percentages. Now, a lot of people don't like to track. They think it's really boring, it's a lot of work, and it really is. I track religiously for the first 2 weeks, and then after that I kind of get an idea of what I'm supposed to have every day, and I repeat a lot of meals so I don't have to keep tracking over and over again. But when I find myself at a stall or a plateau, I have to track again because sometimes I'll be having too much protein, or I usually don't go over my carbs. It's usually the protein or not enough fats, and that's what's throwing me off. So I always make sure to go back to tracking if I'm falling off. All right, now the next question was by Melissa Tentor. How do I decrease my protein? Now, that is a common problem, not getting enough fats or not having enough protein. Now, a lot of people think that they can just have, again, lots of bacon, lots of ground beef, lots of chicken, and that's fine, and some veggies. But that's too much protein, and that will really throw you off, and it's not going to help you. You need to stay within your macros. So some easy meals that have a really good split with a lot of high fats in. Jalapeno poppers are really great. You take a jalapeno and you cut it in half, take the seeds out or leave some in if you like spice, and you fill it with a mixture that's of cheddar and cream cheese, and you bake them, and they're really good. It's a lot of fats. Also, cauliflower fried rice is a really good one. You rice the cauliflower or buy a steamed rice cauliflower and you microwave it. Then you put it in the pan and you add your soy sauce, your garlic, other different spices. And I'll post a link to a recipe for that. It's really good. But again, it's lower on the meat and you can add meat, you can add eggs, but it's not going to be the main base of that meal. Another thing that we like to do in this house is taco salad. We use an 80-20 ground beef, or as fatty as we can find at the supermarket, and we brown it and we put in a taco seasoning packet. I usually do the reduced sodium, even though you do want a lot of sodium in the keto diet. I do the reduced sodium because it's the lowest carbohydrates. And then after I mix that up, I make it just like a regular taco salad. I put in my lettuce or spinach, whichever you prefer, a little bit of the ground beef, usually a quarter or a half a cup, so it's not too much protein, Roma tomatoes because they're low in carbs, and lots of sour cream, some guacamole if you make it yourself, that's really good in fats, and cheese. And that's a really quick filling meal, and you're not going crazy on the proteins. Another thing that you can do to get in more calories and more fats is fat bombs. I posted one recipe for a fat bomb so far, the chocolate chip cookie dough fat bombs, but you can certainly look for other ones. There's plenty on Pinterest. I'm working on a Reese's peanut butter cup fat bomb. They're really filling. They give you a ton of fats because at the end of the day, when you're looking at MyFitnessPal, whatever you're looking at to track, you might need to add some more fats. And so you can do that by doing the fat bombs, like I said. You can get MCT oil, and you can just take a couple tablespoons of that, or you can do coconut oil and just drink it or put it into your coffee or however you want to ingest it, but you need that extra fat, so you can do that. And then another great way to get the fats in and to decrease protein, I put up a recipe for chocolate chip cookies. Those are great. They have really low protein and high fats and very low carbs. You can have a couple of those. You do want to watch what you're doing with cookies and sweets because they do have artificial sugars in them. And depending on how your body responds to them, it could kick you out of ketosis. So you do want to limit them, maybe not have more than 1 or 2 a day. And then see how it affects you. Another great thing that's low protein, high fat, avocados. I try to incorporate them into as many meals as I can a day. I know they are a little expensive, but if you keep them in the fridge, it'll keep them from ripening before you can use them. And then finally, another really quick, easy thing, buffalo wings. I love buffalo wings. And if you throw on some chunky blue cheese dressing or ranch, that's high fats, and then it'll help balance out the protein. All right. So my next question I got is, how do you deal with plateaus, weight loss stalls? The first thing I do is I always recalculate my macros. Even if I've just done them a couple days ago, I go on to rule.me, I put in all of my information, and I find out what my macros are supposed to be. Next, I start tracking again. If I haven't been tracking, I start tracking everything I ingest, including water I put into MyFitnessPal. That way I know where I'm at. And generally when I'm at a stall or a plateau, I'm not getting enough fat, so I'm having too much protein. Next, if that doesn't do it, and for me, it usually does. In this case, it's usually my husband that he's at a plateau. I tell him cut out diet drinks. So no diet sodas, no Mio drops, no additives, just water. And then lastly, cut out prepared sweets. So if you're getting Quest bars, they're a low carb bar that you can find at, GNC or even your supermarkets now. Russell Stover's chocolate, they make sugar-free chocolates. Cut those out. Anything that's prepared that you can buy in the store that's meant to be low carb, Atkins bars, Atkins treats, cut them out. And sometimes that really helps. That's what you need to get off the stall because you start getting comfortable with them because they are low carb and you have too many. You can easily go through an entire box of Atkins chocolate bars, and before you know, you've had way too many carbs and a ton of sugar alcohols. Let's see what's next. Okay, next question. What do you eat for snacks? Okay, so for us, one of our biggest things that we snack on is I go to the deli and I ask for pepperoni, but I get the sandwich style pepperoni, so it's going to be much bigger and it's a lot cheaper than the pre-sliced ones. I can get a pound of that for $4.99 versus getting a little package of the smaller pepperonis for $3.99, and it's not even a quarter pound. And we have that a lot with sliced cheese, cheddar cheese, or whatever you get, the little slices. You need to have the cheese to balance out the protein. And that's a really quick snack that we do in the house. But again, if your protein is too high, you do not want to be having more pepperoni. So you really want to be tracking your macros, even your snacks, even if you're just grabbing a slice. Second, we do lunch meat roll-ups. So if you take some turkey or some ham and you roll it up with some cheese, that's a really quick snack. Hard-boiled eggs. We raise chickens here, so we have tons of eggs. And as long as you don't mind eating your own chicken eggs, then you will have plenty of hard-boiled eggs to make. I've even seen recipes where they do deviled eggs and they do the inside with an avocado mixture with the yolk, and that'll get you even more good fats.
I've got a weird psychological thing where I just can't eat my own eggs, but I love eggs and I'll eat them from the store, so you should eat eggs. And if you can eat your own, do that because it's a big money saver.
Guacamole is another really great snack. You can make it on your own. And you just, for me, I like to dice up my avocado, mush it up, add a ton of garlic, some Roma tomatoes, and some salt and pepper. And you can add whatever seasonings you like. But that's a really, really great snack. And you can use it with celery. You can make, there's a recipe for low carb, what do they call them? Tortilla chips. You can do that. Or you can just have guacamole with a spoon or add it to salads or whatever, but that's a really quick snack. We also like these nuts. They're almond nuts. They're by Blue Diamond, I think. They are barbecue habanero, and they are amazing. They're so good, even for people that don't like barbecue, because I'm not a big barbecue fan.
We want to be sponsored by these guys.
Stop. They're really, really good. They also make another version that is a dark chocolate, and they're both the same amount of carbs, and it'll give you a quick chocolate fix. And
I'm in love with the cocoa.
Another thing we like, fat bombs again. And then finally, drinks. We will usually at night when we want a snack, we'll watch a movie or something, we will make an alcoholic beverage. Sprite Zero is our favorite, mixed with some type of fruity vodka. You'll be surprised, it gets rid of your sweet craving. This is what we're currently having at this moment. Svedka strawberry lemonade and Sprite Zero. If you don't like super sweet, some people think that Sprite Zero is too sweet, you can do seltzer water. That's fine too. They have a lot of flavored seltzer waters. They actually have, we just had a polar strawberry lemonade, and that was really good mixed with the vodka. And then you don't really feel like snacking. You just have your drink, and it's 0 carbs. All right, next question. What are your meal prep times? So for me, I make all of our meals. I can make any of our meals in less than 15 minutes if I need to. Sometimes I like to do an over-the-top meal and it'll take me more, but even my most intensive prepped meal is no more than 45 minutes of prep work, not counting cooking times. Like today, I was really busy, and so for lunch, I took some chicken thighs, which is a big staple in this house, and I put Stubbs barbecue dry rub on it. And I threw it on the grill, and it took 5 minutes to cook on the grill. And then I made a spinach salad with some feta and some Roma tomatoes. And once the chicken was done, I put Frank's Red Hot sauce on it, and I doused it in blue cheese dressing. And that was a really quick lunch. I think it took all of 15 minutes to make, and it was really filling. We do that a lot, either for lunch or dinner. And then the other day, I actually took, we had leftover chicken, prepared that exact same way. And I diced it up really small, and I put it into a pita pocket Joseph's, they have a Noten Flax brand one that's 2.5 grams of carbs for a half, so a pocket, because it comes in a circle. And I put some of the sliced chicken into it with some queso cheese, and I made a little quesadilla with barbecue chicken in it. And that was really good and really easy. Another really easy meal is taco salad or unwrapped burritos, where you'll put the chicken breast into a crock pot with a taco seasoning packet, let it cook for about 4 hours on high, shred it up, and then I make Spanish cauliflower rice, which I have the recipe for in a prior post. And that's really quick to make. It's maybe about 15 minutes of actual prep time. And we had that, I think, so there were 3 of us that ate it, and we had it for about 4 meals. That's how much we got out of it. And it was really quick. So lunches are almost just a reheat for us from dinner, unless I want to make something different. So it's pretty quick. Next question. Oh, actually, fat bombs are usually about under 30 minutes, but they have freezing and fridge time, so it can be about 3 hours to make them. And desserts, they also want to know about desserts. Dessert time, it varies, usually about 30 minutes. There are some, like the tiramisu that I made, that was almost 4 hours to make. Between I have to make certain parts, let it rest and cool, and make other parts. So the tiramisu has been the longest thing that I've had to make, but it's not something I would make every day. Next. Do you work out at all? Nope. I don't. I did before starting the keto diet to try and lose weight, and I was running 5 miles and losing nothing. Once I started the keto diet, I had read that your body needs time to readjust to burning fats for fuel instead of carbs and to take it easy. So I haven't done any working out since. I'm going to start incorporating it come the beginning of October. But to lose weight, and I've lost 38 pounds now since July 1st, I haven't had to do any working out. It's all diet. And a lot of people tell you that when you lose weight, it's 80% diet, 20% in workout. And in my case, it's been 100% diet. And I'm sure I will lose more inches once I start to work out. But I probably will gain a little weight because muscle does weigh more. And make sure to keep that in consideration when you start working out. Let's see. Oh, Eric, you have something to say about working out?
Oh, yeah. So working out, like she said, it takes time for your body to adjust to ketosis. But a lot of people who are endurance athletes actually do use the ketogenic diet. So like if you think about a runner's high that people get, that's actually you breaking through the wall of going into fat burn. And so you can basically run and run and run and run because you have all this energy stored in your body as fat. So endurance athletes often use the ketogenic diet as a way to sort of get an edge and be able to run and run and run for these big super marathons and things like that that they do. So it's totally fine to work out while you do the ketogenic diet. Just make sure you give yourself time to get acclimated. You don't want to do everything all at once and sort of be overwhelmed by, all right, now I'm dieting, I'm exercising, things like that. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Can you do keto on the cheap? I heard it's really expensive. Yes, you can. So you can do keto really expensive or really cheap. There have been weeks where our budget has meant that we had to spend $75 for that week or $100 for that week. And it really is easy. Basically, you're not going to get a lot of that extra baking things. The artificial sugars, the coconut, the almond flours, those add up really quick. They're very expensive and they're usually smaller packages. But for people that really want to do keto on the cheap, eggs are very inexpensive and you can use in almost every meal. Chicken thighs are inexpensive. They're great because they're very fatty. And you can get a very big package. So there's 2 adults and a almost 4-year-old that eat. And we'll get a big package of chicken thighs, and that will supply us for at least 4 to 5 meals. You can also get ground beef. Ground beef goes really far, especially if you're making a chili. I made a chili, and I do have the recipe on the board as well. The chili lasted about, it gave us 12 1-cup servings, I believe. I'll have to double check, but I believe it's 12 1-cup servings. And that lasted for a really long time. And it was pretty inexpensive. I think the whole meal total was $8 to make. Sometimes you got to check the supermarkets and find when the ground beef is going to be the least expensive. But you can do it. You can make buffalo chicken dip and use that as a snack. That goes pretty far too. That recipe's also up there. When you're trying to be on the cheap, you're not going to get as many fresh vegetables. We tend to do staples just like romaine lettuce or spinach, some tomatoes, and that's about it. And then the rest will be put towards meats and dips and cheeses, and whipping cream to make sauces and creams to bring up our fats. See, Amanda says, how do you eat like this with kids around and cooking for them? Our daughter, we're pretty lucky. She'll eat almost everything that we give her. There are some things she'll say she doesn't like she doesn't like mom's spicy soup. She doesn't like chili. I made it too spicy for her. I tend to try to keep the spices down when I know she's going to have it. She is not ketogenic though. I still make her, peanut butter sandwiches. She still gets she'll have toast with her eggs in the morning. She does love keto waffles and pancakes. She asks for them pretty much every day. I do try to make sure that her dinner and most of her breakfast are keto, and then her lunch she can have a little bit different. And she still does have her gummy snacks every once in a while too. It's hard to really take those away from her.
And stick around to the end because I'm going to talk about some of the medical aspects of keto. Remember, this is not a medical page, but I'm going to address some of the questions that are a little bit more medical, and I'll try to include some of the considerations about kids with those types of things.
Okay. Next question. What do I need to avoid? Carbs. Basically no chips and all those other great things that we really love. Sugars, the processed kind, and the hidden ones. Too much protein. That's a big one. People think, again, because it's keto diet, it's all meat. It's not. You really have to keep track of what you're eating for protein because your excess protein gets stored into glucose. Sugar alcohols in excess. So even those sugar alcohols you can subtract from your carbs when you're looking at your net carbs, you do want to keep those at a minimum too. You don't want to go crazy on those. All these low carb snacks that you can buy, they are low carb, but they do have lots of sugar alcohols in, and they can have some adverse reactions into them. For instance, everyone has probably heard of, if you look on Amazon, the Haribo sugar-free gummy bears, where people will eat a ton of them because they taste just like regular gummy bears. Well, the downside is they crap their pants. They can't stop. You should read some of the reviews if you have a chance. It's actually pretty funny. And that goes the same for a lot of the other products like the Russell Stover's chocolates or just the artificial sweeteners in general. Some people that will happen to even if they only have a little, and others it won't. But it can stall your weight loss when you're having too much. Again, I like to, when I think of what to avoid, I like to keep it simple. If all else fails, just stick to a couple basic meals that you know until you get your macros down and tracking, and then you can start adding in some more fancy things like the baked goods or like the casseroles. Let's see. Shani wants to know, what are the keto waffles and pancakes made with? There are a ton of different recipes. Mine in particular, I use almond flour. I generally use almond flour for almost all my baking and frying just because I feel like it browns much better than coconut flour. Coconut flour for baking tends to be a lot softer. When I do use coconut flour, I tend to add ground flax as well to help crisp it up a little bit more. I do have a couple recipes for the keto waffles on my page, and I do have one I'm going to be posting up for pancakes this weekend as well, and French toast. Next question. Walk me through an average day. Okay, so for an average day, when I'm trying to keep it very easy, I start my day off with 4 slices of bacon, which it's actually 2. I cut them in half. I use the super thick cut. Generally, I buy Smithfield's. But sometimes I buy whatever on sale for thick cut. And I have that. I have 2 eggs scrambled with a little heavy whipping cream in them and some garlic and salt. And then I have a half of avocado just cut up on the side. And that's my breakfast. Generally, that keeps me full right to lunch, and I don't need to have a snack in between. Come lunch, I can do a couple different things. I can do leftovers. I can do a pita pocket with lunch meat and cheese and a ton of mayo. Sometimes I'll fast at lunch if I know I'm going to have a heavier dinner. Same with breakfast. Sometimes I'll fast breakfast and have a lunch. But generally lunch is leftovers for me, or I'll grill up some chicken. That's really quick. And then for dinner recently, because it's been the summer, we've been doing barbecue chicken. We've been doing burgers with bacon and cheese on it. I really like casseroles because they last a long time. I have one on there. It's a cauliflower, bacon, chicken, casserole, and that lasted us a couple days, and it's really filling and high in fats. Soups are also really great because they are high in fats, low in protein. You can do cauliflower soups. There are broccoli cheddar soups that are really good. They have a baked potato soup that's made with cauliflower. That's also really good. And I can post, again, some of these recipes up later. And then finally, I'll sometimes have a snack. I'll do the chips or the pepperoni and cheese. And then at dessert time, again, I'll either have a Sprite Zero and vodka or some nuts or sugar-free Jell-O. Another one that's really fun to make because it's really easy is chocolate sugar-free pudding with heavy whipping cream. And then you use a hand mixer to whisk it up, and it makes it more of a mousse. And you can have a small amount, whatever your portions allow for your macros for that day. And that's a really quick, easy snack. Let's see, were there any more comments with questions?
Yeah, guys, feel free to shoot off some comments and questions just to let us know some of the things you might want to talk about, because we don't really have a time limit on this right now. So if you want us to keep going, ask plenty of questions. And
now Eric has 2 questions that were asked that are more science related. And then if you have more questions for me, go ahead and ask them in the comments.
All right, hey guys. So the things I wanted to talk about again were the more medical, sciencey kind of questions. One of them came from Pam. She had asked about, what do we have, Matt? For diabetics, is there a risk? Oh no, she had asked, for diabetics, is there a risk of low blood sugar? So this diet has been studied with diabetics as an intervention because the primary problem with diabetes is glucose. Your glucose is too high, and so a lot of diabetics end up having to go on medications to control that, either metformin, insulin, or other medications. And so what you're doing in this diet, and again, go back and look at one of Cassie's videos about the macros, look at my video about the sort of the science behind it, because I don't want to get too science heavy here. But what you're doing is you're converting your energy source in your body into fat rather than glucose. And so in theory, you shouldn't be having lows in terms of your blood sugar, because you're getting a consistent release of energy source for the body in the form of fats. So fats that you have stored, fats that you're eating, are readily available for your body to use because you're in a metabolic state where your body wants to use fats. Now, is there a risk for hypoglycemia or low blood sugar? Yes, of course there is. If you're not putting enough glucose into the body, somebody who is a brittle diabetic, meaning you've been diabetic for quite some time, it hasn't been well controlled, there's a risk associated with that. So you'll notice that Cassie talks a lot about net carbs and how in your macros there is a net carb recommendation. And generally speaking, most people want to stay under 20, okay? And so sitting around that area, which is hard enough to do, will keep you usually in a safe zone where you're not going to become hypoglycemic. Again, there are some considerations. If you're a brittle diabetic, you should really be having this discussion with your primary care provider, or if you work with an endocrinologist, you should be having this discussion with them. They may ask you to shy away from this diet, but it doesn't mean you can't eventually work towards this diet by slowly eliminating some of the carbs out of your diet and then implementing proteins and fats, and then switching the proteins down a little bit, implementing more fats. Diet and exercise are a great way to control a lot of health conditions, so definitely talk to your primary care provider about that. The other question that I was asked is, can someone with high cholesterol do this diet? And that was by Darlene. So I'm glad you're here, Darlene. So there are some actually ethnicities that respond differently to this diet. East Asians respond differently to the ketogenic diet because their metabolism of lipids is quite different than the general populace. And what I mean by that is everybody has a set amount of receptors in their body when they're born that respond to the ingestion of anything. Opioid receptors for opioids, cholesterol receptors for cholesterol when you eat cholesterol, and glucose receptors. So when you talk about somebody who's diabetic, their glucose receptors either get destroyed, are diminished, or what have you. And same with their insulin receptors. So they build resistance to insulin release and glucose intake. Somebody with primary hypercholesterolemia, and that's something, again, you want to talk to your primary care doctor about, may be at risk for adverse response to this diet. However, we don't know what the associated risk is for somebody who has just pure hypercholesterolemia with no documented history of heart disease, stroke, things like that in themselves or in their family. So again, if you have high cholesterol and you don't have a pre-existing hypercholesterolemia, meaning you have fewer cholesterol receptors, you don't have a huge family history of coronary artery disease or things like that, this could be a good diet for you because you're telling your body to use up cholesterol, meaning there's less of it just floating around in the bloodstream and more of it being used for energy instead. So in a lot of studies they did, and a lot of these studies were done around the time that the Atkins diet came out, a lot of the physicians were like, no, this isn't a good diet. We all know fats are bad, which they're not. They had actually disproven themselves by studying his response and many of the people he was having do the diet's response. Cholesterol was being lowered, weight was being lowered, average blood glucose levels were being lowered to a safe area, and people were becoming healthier. So there's controversy on this topic. Definitely talk to your primary care doctor about it, or talk to a registered dietitian about it. But in general, if you have just marginally high cholesterol and you're working to decrease it and you don't have this congenital condition, this is a safe diet for you to do and you can pursue it, but have your cholesterol monitored, and you can get that usually covered through insurance by just having your provider document that you're doing dietary changes and you want to monitor it. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to turn you back over to Cassie.
Okay, so what brand of pita do I use? Here it is right here. It's Joseph's Flax Oat Bran and Whole Wheat Pita Bread. Now, it comes, like I said, in a whole circle. There's 60 calories in entire pita. And for carbs, there are 9 total carbs and 4 carbs of dietary fiber. So you subtract the dietary fiber from the carbs, so that brings you down to 5. And since you're only having half of it to a pita pocket, that's 2.5. So it's really great to make sandwiches. Another staple in our house is BLTs. Cook up a couple pieces of thick cut bacon. Usually we do 3 slices, a ton of mayo, some tomato, some lettuce, and throw it in the pita pocket, and you can crisp it up in a pan or use it as is. It packs really great for lunches if you're taking it on the go. You can just put a little ice pack in, and that's fine. What about the buffalo sauce and barbecue? Buffalo sauce, we use buffalo sauce, I use Frank's Red Hot sauce, not the buffalo wing sauce. And for the barbecue seasoning, I use Stubbs Dry Rub. Do you want to grab that for me?
Yeah.
It's really great. I don't know if every grocery store has it, but here in New England, we have it. I go through a container usually every 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. It's $3.99 for this. And there are 0 carbs in this and 0 calories. And there is some sodium here, which is really good because you do really want to have a lot of sodium in this diet and magnesium. That's another thing that's important that I didn't talk about earlier. When you first start this diet, as some of you are starting it, you might have symptoms that are the keto flu is what it's called if you are on boards and things like that looking into it. You'll feel fatigued. You'll sometimes have headaches. You'll be kind of bitchy. Well, in my case, I was. You'll have cravings.
I was just wicked excited, so I wasn't bitchy.
So having Powerade Zero, because it has a lot of sodium and magnesium, that'll help. Chicken broth, that'll help a lot. And both of those can be used every day, even when you're recovered from the keto flu. It usually takes about 1 to 2 weeks to get over that. So again, Stubbs barbecue dry rub, really great. I put it in burgers when I make burgers. I put it on chicken thighs when I put them on the grill. It's an all around really good seasoning. It's very easy.
I also had a coworker share a great tomato sauce with me, and I'm going to give a little teaching point on this. But this is made by Organico Bello. There's no sugar added on it. It's 4 net carbs. But I want to make a little comment about the net carbs. When you're looking at the nutritional panel here, you can look at, and I know it's going to be backwards, sorry. You can look at total carbs, dietary fiber, sugar, and sometimes you might notice a discrepancy there. If you minus 4 from, what is this one, 9, right? And it says that there's 0, you would think, well, okay, so there's 5 left over. Some people try to just minus the sugars, and that's not going to work out because obviously there's a discrepancy there of 4 more carbs. But some companies like Organico Bello actually do the work for you, and they'll list their total carbs as the net carbs. So you really just have to kind of look at the whole thing. If it says there's sugars in it and you're minusing out the fiber and there's less total carbs than there is sugars, then there's something wrong there. Some companies are now starting to list net carbs. So just be aware of that. Be aware of the companies you're shopping for. But generally, minus your dietary fiber from your total carbs, and that's going to get you your net.
Same with tomato, like you were saying, tomato sauce. I generally like to make my own tomato sauce as long as you have the time. It's really quick. It's very inexpensive. And then you know what's going into it. But there are some companies on the market now that make some low carb ones. Barbecue sauce. They do have gourmet barbecue sauces that are low carb. And there are recipes to make your own low carb barbecue sauce. They generally require liquid smoke, which I haven't wanted to invest in yet. But you can find a lot of the low carb barbecue sauces on Amazon.com. Let's see, other questions.
Shoot us some questions, guys.
Someone asked the other day about sugar-free maple syrup. So I do make a lot of waffles and pancakes. And for the sugar-free syrup, there are some really great expensive ones, and I'm sure they taste fantastic. But I actually use a really cheap generic one that I just got at the supermarket. It's just sugar-free, it's simple, and I use it to bake with because a lot of my recipes, I add in a little maple syrup to help cut the flavor of the artificial sweeteners. Again, you also want to be careful with your sauces. Ketchup, believe it or not, has a lot of sugars in it, but they do make sugar or reduced sugar ketchup. This is Heinz. They do a reduced sugar. So you're looking at 1 gram of carbs per tablespoon. And then another quick sauce that we use a lot in the house, we use sriracha sauce. And that has less than 1 gram of carbs per teaspoon. So that's basically what we use for seasonings and sauces in this house. And if there are no more questions, I think we'll call it a night for now. And I think I'll try to do another video again. So, do you do carb ups?
Are you talking about like
carb cycling?
So Karina wants to know if we do carb ups. I haven't heard that term. I don't think Cassie has either.
I have.
You have?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's kind of debated heavily in a lot of the keto community. Because some people will increase their carbs and they'll throw them out of ketosis. I actually haven't noticed a weight stall on that. So for instance, since we've been doing the low carb diet, I've had a couple cheat meals and I will notice that I might gain a pound the next day, but then the day after I could be down 2 or 3 pounds. So it might help kind of take me out of a rut. If I'm always staying at the same level of carbs, I try to vary. Some days I'm really below 20, other days I'm right up at 20. So as far as cycling, that's about as much as I do, other than when I have a cheat meal, not a cheat day, just a cheat meal. But there are people in the community that do think that carb cycling is really good for the diet. I don't particularly do it, But like I said, I do cheat meals.
Wait, you're
and I'll
saying
kind of get into that too.
You're saying I need to carb cycle to break through my plateau?
No. So when everyone's going to want to cheat at some point. And when I do, I like to do it as a meal. So for me, I will fast breakfast and lunch. I will have bulletproof coffee, a SO coffee with the butter and the MCT oils in it. And I'll have water throughout the day or Powerade. And then I will have whatever meal I'm going to do as my cheat meal. And I try not to go crazy. Although there are times when I have had a couple extra desserts. But that way I'm not really throwing my body out of ketosis. I mean, I'm throwing it out, but it's going to be easier to recover. For instance, we went to the St. Anthony's Festival. It's an Italian festival in the north end of Boston a couple weeks ago. And I had 3 cannolis and 2 pieces of pizza. And it took me a week to recover from, even with fasting before I went and then the breakfast after. But, you know, after I recovered, I dropped weight really quickly after that. So I try to keep it just a cheat meal, not a cheat day. Do I calorie count? I do calorie count. I incorporate that into my macros, and that website that I talked about earlier, ruled.me, they do give you what your calorie intake should be a day. You don't want to put yourself into starvation mode. You do need calories, but you also want to make sure that you're not going crazy with it. I find if you're hitting all your macros, your calories come in sync with it. You don't have to worry about those as much. But I do make sure my calories, the rule.me says they're supposed to be about 1,300. I find that I'm usually about 1,000 to 1,200. So then I'll add in some extra coconut oil and that'll help out too. Excuse me.
So, Chris, good question. Chris is asking, is there an exercise that goes with this, or is it just eating and lifestyle change? So, ketogenesis in and of itself is just eating and lifestyle change. And it's unfortunately, it's a lot of what you can't eat, but there are exercises that do benefit from this type of diet. I talked about that a little bit earlier in the video. Feel free to go back and watch this over again if you want, but I'll just sort of briefly cardio exercises. So runners and endurance athletes use this diet a lot to get a competitive edge. So those exercises benefit from this diet, but it's not necessarily the other way around. Of course, any exercise in conjunction with dietary change will improve weight loss. It'll improve overall cardiopulmonary health and just your overall health. So we encourage exercise in conjunction with this. Exercise will not stall your weight loss in any way, especially if you're talking about inches and things like that. And what's that?
But the scale.
But yeah, so it might affect the scale. If you're doing like weight training and things like that, I know the first time that I did this exercise, I lost 32 pounds in 3 months. I was also exercising a ton, like 5 days a week, and putting on a lot of muscle. So in reality, in terms of fat, I may have lost more than that, sort of percentage-wise, but I was putting on mass in terms of muscle and then losing weight in terms of fat. So I hope that answers your question.
That kind of leads me into, and I'm kind of a hypocrite of this, you should try not to weigh yourself daily. It can be kind of deflating when you don't see it going down as fast. Weekly is the best because sometimes it fluctuates, especially if you're working out. You may be retaining water because of the muscles. All right, so any more questions before we call it a night?
Anybody?
Okay, so if you have more questions, I'm going to try to do another one of these live videos next week. So you can always send them to me by message, or when I put up an event for the next live video, you can put it in there too. All right, well, thanks for joining us and thanks for your questions.
And if you send it by private message, we're going to assume you don't want us to say your name. So we're going to try to respect people's anonymity, so to speak. But if you post it as a comment, we'll give you a little shout out by saying your name when we say the comment or the question.
All right, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.